Have you ever looked at the woman you're with and felt, for the first time, that your words simply don't land anymore? It's a quiet moment, almost too subtle to notice, but emotionally, it hits like a punch you never saw coming. One day, without warning, you feel it in your gut. Something about the way she listens to you has changed. She didn't announce it. She didn't explain it. She just shifted slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, until the respect you once felt from her slipped beneath the surface. Most men try to rationalize it. They tell themselves she's tired, distracted, stressed. They assume it's temporary. But deep underneath, something much more significant is happening. She isn't responding to your words with the same weight she once did, and she's doing it so naturally that you can't even pinpoint when things began to drift. You mention something that genuinely matters to you, and she shrugs it off. You try to draw a line, and she treats it like an inconvenience. You speak from a place of honesty, and somehow it gets twisted into insecurity or overreaction. And the harder you try to fix it with explanations, the more distance you feel growing between you. She's not confused. She's not failing to understand. She simply stopped feeling the gravity of your words because somewhere along the way, without realizing it, you stopped carrying any. If you've ever felt that quiet sinking feeling, the one that whispers she's slipping through your fingers even while she's still beside you, then you're about to understand exactly why it happens and why talking has never been the solution. This is where everything begins. When a woman stops feeling the weight of your words, something deeper triggers beneath the surface, something most men never understand until it's too late. It doesn't matter how calm you speak, how respectfully you phrase things, or how mature you try to be. Once she senses that your voice carries no real consequence, her mind stops registering your concerns as something she needs to respond to. She hears you, but she doesn't listen. And that difference is everything. A lot of men confuse being reasonable with being effective. They think if they stay patient, avoid conflict, communicate clearly, and choose logic over emotion, she'll eventually match that energy. But women don't respond to logic the way men think they do. They respond to conviction, presence, and the feeling that the man standing in front of them actually means what he says. When that feeling fades, even slightly, her instincts shift without her needing to think about it. You'll notice it in the smallest interactions. She'll test your tone. She'll push a boundary lightly, just to see on how you react. She'll interrupt you halfway through a sentence, not because she's trying to be rude, but because she subconsciously knows she can. And every time you respond with more words instead of firm action, you reinforce the message you never intended to send, that your boundaries depend on her mood, not your standards. This is why so many men feel like they're repeating themselves endlessly. They're not being ignored because they're unclear. They're being ignored because they've trained her without realizing it that nothing happens when she ignores them. No shift, no consequence, no change in the dynamic. And once a woman learns that pattern, she doesn't unlearn it on her own. She won't magically start respecting your words again just because you're trying harder. Respect doesn't return through repetition. It returns through a change in energy, the kind only action can create. Not conversation? Understanding this shift is the first step, because if you don't recognize what's happening here, you won't understand why everything that comes next feels like a battle you keep losing long before the argument even begins. Once a woman senses that your words carry no real weight, the dynamic of the relationship shifts in a way most men don't see until the damage is already done. And this is where men fall into the biggest trap. They start believing the solution is to communicate more. They try to explain the same point in a softer tone, a clearer way, or with more detail, hoping she'll finally get it. But what they don't realize is that every attempt to clarify only reinforces the one message she's already absorbed, that your words are negotiable. Men tend to think in terms of logic. If something makes sense, if the explanation is reasonable, then the other person should adjust. But that's not how women operate in relationships. A woman doesn't judge your boundaries based on the logic behind them. She judges them based on how firmly you stand behind them. She's responding to energy, not paragraphs. This is why she can hear you say the same thing 10 times and still act like it never mattered. It's not because she's confused. It's because you taught her unintentionally that your words are just expressions, not commitments. And once a woman learns that your no doesn't actually mean no, that your I'm not okay with, that doesn't change anything, she moves into a different psychological space. She starts to treat your boundaries as optional because that's how you've been treating them. And this shift doesn't make her evil, manipulative, or selfish. It makes her human. It's the natural way people respond when they realize they can act freely without losing anything. She pushes because nothing pushes back. She tests because nothing holds firm. She ignores your standards because nothing in her experience tells her those standards matter. This is the real reason communication starts to fall apart. Not because you aren't speaking clearly, but because she no longer feels the gravity behind the words you're speaking. And until that gravity returns, no amount of talking will bring the respect back. Once she learns that nothing actually happens when she ignores your boundaries, something shifts inside her quietly but permanently. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't even think about it consciously. But her behavior changes, almost like gravity pulling her in a new direction. She starts to live in a world where your reactions are predictable, safe, and ultimately harmless to her. And in that world, your words lose their leverage. This is why you'll notice her becoming bolder with things she used to avoid. She'll speak to you in a tone she wouldn't have used before. She'll do things she knows you don't like, not because she wants to hurt you, but because she no longer believes your disapproval has any real meaning. And every time you respond with another long explanation, or worse, with nothing at all, you reinforce the safety of that assumption. It's at this stage that many men start feeling like strangers in their own relationship. They catch themselves wondering when the shift happened, or why the woman who used to be attentive and considerate now feels distant, dismissive, or unpredictable. But the truth is simple: she hasn't become colder. She's become unrestrained. She's acting according to the reality you helped create. She now knows your frustration leads to conversation, not consequence. She knows your disappointment ends with a discussion, not a shift in behavior. And she knows that no matter what line she crosses, you'll meet her with more patience, more words, more effort, everything except the one thing that would change the dynamic, decisive action. And once she reaches this place, the relationship doesn't break instantly. It simply starts drifting toward a version where she listens only when she wants to, and you tolerate more than you ever intended to. The point where everything truly begins to unravel is the moment she realizes something you never intended to show. Your boundaries are flexible, your standards can be negotiated, and your convictions depend on her reaction instead of your own integrity. She may not articulate it, but she feels it. And once she feels it, she can never unfeel it. From her perspective, you become a man who talks about lines but never enforces them. A man who wants respect but tries to earn it with explanations. A man who says, "I don't like this," yet stays exactly where he is when she does it anyway. And the brutal truth is this: once she senses she can get away with the behavior you claim to hate, she stops taking your displeasure seriously, not out of malice, but out of pure human conditioning. This is where most men start to notice the emotional distance. She becomes less responsive, less invested, less concerned with how her actions affect you. It's not that she's trying to hurt you. She just doesn't feel the need to accommodate your feelings because your behavior has shown her she doesn't have to. You've built a dynamic where she can slip, push, or disrespect without risking anything. And this is the part that stings the most. She didn't lose respect because she's cruel. She lost it because you taught her she could. Once a woman internalizes that, the relationship shifts into a new phase 1, where your words are reduced to background noise. and she only adjusts when it benefits her, not because your presence commands it. And until that dynamic changes at the root, nothing in the relationship will feel stable again. When a woman senses that your boundaries are soft, her behavior doesn't just drift. It becomes a series of unconscious tests. She doesn't wake up thinking, "Let me see how far I can push him today." It's far more instinctive than that. Women test without planning to, the same way men protect without thinking about it. It's built into how relationships balance themselves. These tests show up in simple moments. She'll challenge your tone. She'll question a decision you made. She'll give a sarcastic response just to see how you handle it. She'll say something slightly disrespectful and watch your reaction, not because she wants drama, but because she wants to know what kind of man she's really dealing with. A woman doesn't test to punish you. She tests to measure you. She wants to know whether the man she's with can handle conflict without folding, whether you can stay grounded when she's emotional, whether your sense of direction comes from within or from her approval. And when those tests come, most men fail them in the exact same way they respond, with emotion instead of composure, words instead of action, panic instead of presence. Every insecure explanation, every overreaction, every attempt to fix the situation right now tells her the same thing: that your confidence is fragile, that your boundaries are just suggestions, and that your emotional balance depends on what she says or does. Once she feels that, the test escalates, not out of cruelty, but because she still doesn't have her answer. And the irony is harsh. The more you try to convince her you're strong, the more she senses you're not. A woman doesn't judge your strength by how loudly you speak it, but by how calmly you live it. By the time she's testing you regularly, most men fall into the emotional trap they don't even see coming. They think the only way to prove they're serious is to defend themselves, justify their intentions, or argue their way back into her respect. And that's exactly where they lose control. Because the moment you argue on her emotional level, you've already stepped into her arena, the arena where she has home field advantage. Women are naturally in tune with emotion. They read tone, energy, hesitation, insecurity. They feel the shift in the air before you even realize you changed your posture. When she's frustrated, she might raise her voice. She might tear up. She might throw accusations, not because she's trying to win logically, but because emotional pressure is where she feels strongest. And most men, the second they feel that pressure, either explode or crumble. They raise their voice back, or they over-explain, or they try desperately to make her understand. But doing that only confirms her suspicion you're not steady. You're not anchored. Your internal state is reactive, not grounded. A man loses power the moment he lets emotion pull him out of his center. Not because emotion is a idiot, but because a woman instinctively looks for stability in the man she's with. When she's the storm and you become the storm with her, she stops feeling safe in your presence. And when she stops feeling safe, she stops respecting your lead. This is why arguments with her feel impossible to win. Not because she's smarter or more intense, but because you abandoned the one advantage you had: your calm, your frame, your ability to stay unmoved while she cycles through her emotions. A woman doesn't need you to fight the storm. She needs to feel you won't get swept away by it. Once you understand that reacting emotionally only fuels the chaos, the question becomes, what actually works? And the answer is something most men never consider, even though it's the most powerful move they have. Calm indifference paired with action. Not coldness, not disrespect, not punishment, but a calm, grounded presence that refuses to be dragged into an emotional battlefield. When she's yelling, crying, or trying to provoke a reaction, she's not looking for your logic. She's not waiting for another explanation. What she's really searching for, often, without realizing it, is the reassurance that you won't fall apart just because she's overwhelmed. She wants to feel that her emotions don't dictate your reality, that her storm doesn't shake your foundation. Most men crumble because they mistake emotional intensity for urgency. They feel pressured to fix something right now. They rush to resolve the conflict, thinking the faster they calm her down, the safer the relationship is. But this reaction tells her you're afraid of her emotions, not in control of yourself. The man who wins these moments isn't the one who argues best or explains the most. It's the man who stays steady, the man who lets her emotion peak and fall without absorbing it. The man who speaks less and acts more when she throws chaos, and you remain composed. Something shifts in her instinctive wiring. She feels your strength, not through words, but through your stillness. And in that stillness, she realizes something she forgot. This is a man whose presence leads the room, not a man who gets pulled around by the moment. This is where respect begins to return, not through speeches, not through apologies, through the simple, unshakable force of a man who refuses to lose himself just because she lost her center. Once she feels that you can stay centered while she's emotional, the next shift comes from something even more powerful. Your actions finally matching your words. Because no matter how steady you are, no matter how calm your presence feels, nothing redefines a man's value in a relationship faster than the moment she sees that you don't just talk. You move. Women pay attention to what you do far more than what you say. And when your behavior finally aligns with the boundaries you've been trying to express, her entire perception of you changes. Not because she's afraid of losing you, but because your actions reveal something she hasn't felt in a long time: consequence. A consequence isn't a punishment. It's the natural result of a choice. If she creates distance, you match that distance. If she disrespects your time, you stop offering it so freely. If she crosses a boundary, you don't argue, you adjust your involvement accordingly. And when you do this calmly, without anger or theatrics, it shocks her more than any raised voice ever could. She suddenly realizes the dynamic has flipped. The man who used to chase clarity now lives with clarity. The man who used to repeat himself now lets his absence speak. The man who used to negotiate his standards now honors them without discussion. This is the moment she starts paying attention again, not because you demanded it, but because your behavior finally tells a story she can't ignore. She may push back, she may question it, but underneath the resistance is something deeper, a renewed awareness of your value. For the first time in a long time, she feels what she once felt at the beginning, the weight of your presence and the cost of losing it. When your actions begin speaking louder than every conversation you've ever had, something remarkable happens. Her respect starts to return, quietly and almost reluctantly. She won't say it. She won't admit she feels it, but you'll notice it in the way her tone softens, in the way she watches your reactions more closely, in the way she hesitates before crossing a line she used to walk over without thinking. This shift isn't magic. It's biology and psychology working together. A woman respects what she can't control. She values what she can't easily sway. When she sees that your boundaries aren't just words, when she feels that losing you is a real possibility, her entire behavior recalibrates, not because she fears punishment, but because she finally feels the presence of a man who leads himself, not one who bends for approval. But here's the part most men misunderstand. She isn't responding to the consequence itself. She's responding to the strength behind it. She's responding to the version of you who no longer negotiates his standards, who no longer needs to be understood to stand firm, who no longer collapses under emotional pressure. And this is where everything comes full circle. The reason she stopped listening in the first place wasn't because you were wrong, or weak, or unworthy. It was because you were operating from need for her agreement, need for her validation, need for her compliance. Need suffocates respect. Strength creates it. When you remove need from the equation, when your actions are driven by self-respect instead of fear, she feels the difference instantly. And even if she doesn't say it out loud, her behavior reveals the truth. She listens again, Not because you demanded respect, but because you finally became a man who commands it. When a woman starts listening to you again, it's never because you finally said the perfect words. It's because you stopped chasing her understanding and returned to the one thing she truly responds to: a man whose actions match his standards, a man who doesn't negotiate his values, a man who leads himself first. Respect doesn't come from endless conversations. It comes from consistency: your tone, your decisions, your boundaries, your willingness to walk away from anything that costs you your self-respect. When she feels that strength again, the shift is immediate. Her tone softens. Her resistance fades, not because she's afraid, but because she recognizes the kind of man she can trust, follow, and take seriously. The truth is simple. You don't teach her respect. You embody the version of yourself she can't help but respect. And the right woman will rise to that. The wrong woman will fall away. Either outcome puts you back in your power. So stop explaining. Stop proving. Stop trying to be understood. Become the man whose presence speaks for itself, the man she listens to, because losing him is a cost she'll never want to pay. If you're ready to step into that version of yourself, keep watching. The next part will change everything. Thank you for watching. If this message hit you, don't just scroll away. Subscribe, dive deeper into our content, and start building the mindset that puts you back in control. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest struggle you want us to break down next? Let's build a brotherhood of men who rise above confusion and reclaim their power. See you in the next video.